Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Nicholas County Board of Education regular meeting, Monday, October 16th, 2023. And at this time, if you'll stand for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Please join the board with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No. Okay, number 3 is approval of the agenda.
I have one item that we need to correct. It's on the second page of your agenda. It's 8C, and it says discussion of possible action on the inclusion of Summersville Elementary School and Goat Creek Elementary School. Summersville Middle School needs to be included in that item, because we are closing Summersville Middle School from the pods to the building. Those are 3 buildings, so just add Summersville Middle School to that. That's the only thing I have.
Okay. Number 4, student representatives. We have Cambria Neal and Bethany Butcher from Nicholas County High School.
Good evening. My name is Bethany Butcher, and I'm the Nicholas County High School student representative. Throughout high school, I have participated in the Honor Society, Student Council. I'm the senior class secretary, and I will be participating in my 4th year of Nicholas County High School softball. To start, I would like to bring the attention to some of my fellow accomplished students and congratulate them on their good work. Literature Fair winners Presley Loss, Sarah Casey, Ada Hoover, Garrett Toulier, and Jasmine Hobson. Best of show was Olivia Bandy and Lucy Morrison. Moving on to county winners, Olivia Bandy and Lucy Morrison, Presley Loss, Garrett Toulier, and Jasmine Hobson. Also, congratulations to the band for their performance at the Forest Festival, where they took first place in all categories and first place of the band. Or in the parade, sorry. On the 28th, they traveled to Marshall to participate in the Tri-State competition. More upcoming events include the Pumpkin Drop on October 27th, Spirit Week October 23rd through 27th, and Homecoming this Saturday. Our student council has also recently traveled to local grade schools, Mount Nebo and Glade Creek, to help the students with their literature fair projects. I would like to start by, I wanted to ask if we could implement a new bulletin board to the school that posts upcoming community service and local hiring jobs for students who aren't sure where to start looking. As someone who understands the concern of not knowing where to start, I think it would be a good addition to the school.
Good evening, I'm Cambria Neal. I have participated in student council, varsity softball. This will be my 4th year in that. And I'm also on the homecoming court in effort to win homecoming queen. Moving on to sports, recent school awards were Johnny Walkup and Luke Barr. They took 1st and 2nd place at the Coalfield Conference in cross country. At the Frank Young race, the cross country boys achieved 1st place and girls earned 2nd. Our golf team members, Cole Brown, Braden Brown, Maddox Smallwood, and Caleb Jarvis, recently traveled to the state competition for the first time since 1996. Cole and Maddox placed top 25 in the competition. On October 16th, school sectionals start for the boys against Roane County. On the 17th, the girls play Pocahontas to start their sectional season. Also upcoming in sports, the girls volleyball, senior night, cross country states, and the Powder Puff homecoming game. I asked Sam Feinstein how he thinks the cross country team will do at the state meet, and he said that we're going to do amazing. Also, a local football player, Jackson Morrison, was named Blue Press Week 8 Player of the Week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, number 5 on the agenda is superintendent's information updates.
Before I go into the construction part, which takes up the majority of the time, I passed out to the board a congratulatory letter to Regina Thomas, who's principal of Panther Creek Elementary School. And what it was is they applied for a grant through the Country Roads Codes Grant and received $2,000 grant, which they'll be using in December. And it'll be used for all the students, and they'll be doing computer science activities on 2 particular days. I did ask Mrs. Thomas if she'd like to come, but she could not get here this evening, so she asked that I share this with you and read that award. So congratulations to them. Second of all, I'm going to have Mrs. Weitzel come up before I get into the construction discussion and have her to share with you the monthly school report that she's asked our schools to do. So, Ms. Weitzel.
Good evening. In your board packet, you will find school board reports. These will be submitted at the second board meeting of each month. And what I've asked the schools to do is look at their data, attendance, discipline, strategic plans, and then also highlight any activities that are upcoming or that have just previously taken place. So that way, if there are any activities that you might want to attend or get out to, you'll have an idea of what's coming up in each of our schools. This is a way for each of our schools every month to keep the board informed about what's going on and how our students are achieving. So if you have any questions about any of the information in them, we'd be happy to share it with you or get you some additional information if you have any questions after you read through it.
So,
And the other thing it does is where the board is required every month, you go ahead, Mr. Brown.
you got it.
That we have to talk about academic achievement and performance by our students. So this way, it's on every board agenda every month, and we have the documentation approved when the board has to show that they are addressing academic issues.
One of your efficiency indicators.
Yeah.
And this will be included in our minutes for the second board meeting of each month.
So, I thought they were going to look at our agenda. The order they looking at minutes?
They will look at our minutes,
They look at our minutes.
and that's what they,
So it doesn't have to be on the agenda.
board reports on the agenda that reflects what we're talking about.
Okay, so
And
that's the
then-
next item. I got you.
Yeah, so, and then they'll go into the minutes to actually look at the data that's provided in the minutes.
I thought they were well done. I read them this afternoon. I think it's good. It kind of makes your leaders think about what they are doing when they put it down on paper.
And also, we want to, if you have members of the community that are asking you questions about what's going on in the schools, we want you to have that information firsthand and up to date as much as possible. So, thank you.
Thank you. Getting to the construction updates, pretty much my entire day has been spent talking with either the State Board of Education or the SBA or our FEMA lawyer, or we had a meeting with Skanska today that Mr. Ferguson was on there with me about. We're trying to move this process along as quickly as we can. At the last board meeting, the board voted to build, as everybody knows, a pre-K-8 in one single facility. That information is being forwarded on to FEMA. FEMA has to, even though they've already told us that any of the 3 options would be acceptable to them, we still have to get their approval on that particular item that we've selected. When that happens, then we can move forward with the changing our CEFP, which we have to do. Any time that you make changes to your buildings, you have to amend your CEFP. Dave Ferguson from ZMM and I discussed it a couple times today. They are preparing our update, which we have to do an update every year anyway, but they're preparing our update, and hopefully they'll have that ready for us on Friday. I reached out to not only the SBA, but the State Board of Education to get on the November agenda for them to approve our CEFP update. If we get the information back from FEMA to allow us to move forward, and then the State Board and SBA, which will actually approve, they've already told me they will approve our CEFP update on the same day in November, then we can immediately start working on closure hearings for our schools that we select to close. And of course, those are listed in our agenda, and move forward then with our architects designing our buildings, hopefully as quickly as we could possibly get them to design buildings. And Mr. Prine was talking prior to the meeting about input. We'll be allowing input into the design of these buildings. So that's kind of where we are with our updates. I wanted to read you something that Marissa Nortz sent me today. She is our FEMA attorney, and every time that, especially me, that I want to get a little bit farther down the road, she kind of pulls the reins and says, just hold on there, son. And I'm going to read to you what she told me. I sent her an email that said, good afternoon, Marissa. At last week's special board meeting, the board chose option 1, which was one building to house pre-K-8. At tonight's meeting, we will give approval to do an amendment to the CEFP to close Glade Creek, Summersville Elementary, and Summersville Middle. Plans by SBA and WVDE is to approve our CEFP update at a November State Board meeting. ZMM plans to have our amendment completed by Friday of this week. And she wrote back, thanks for the update. I will need the new scope of work change details from ZMM to finalize the document for submittal to FEMA. I circulated that draft with the highlighted areas that remain outstanding last week. Once I have those details, I can submit the scope of work change to FEMA for review and approval. Key things still needed are details of the new plans, which schools are closed, the number of students, the total square footage, and so forth. The anticipated cost and the new project schedules. Of course, that's something that we can provide them with the number of students and all that kind of stuff, but the other stuff, ZMM will have to provide. Please note that while I think it's a great idea to be moving this along at this pace, the board still requires FEMA's approval of the scope of work change before the project can proceed. So amending the CFP prior to FEMA approval of the scope of work change may mean some additional changes to the CFP should FEMA require additional changes. I agree we should proceed in this manner. Just want to be clear that the board still requires, and she says this once again, for FEMA prior to proceeding with the plan. Again, as soon as I have the needed information from ZMM, we'll get that document submitted and I can begin to lean on FEMA to turn around a decision. So no matter how much we want to push, we can't do anything else until FEMA says, okay. That's where we are. And that's my report.
Okay, next, delegations. Ms. Kim, do we have any delegations?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 7, there's no discussion or presentation items. 8, action items. A, discussion with possible action on the MOU for communities and schools. And that's in your packet. The one thing I noticed was, so you went with Panther Creek and Richwood Middle and Richwood High?
Yes. Mrs. Weitzel and Mr. Williams have actually been working on this community schools project, so they can answer those questions. But yes, we did select Panther Creek and the middle school and the high school, because they did not have the other services that some of the other schools had. So we wanted to. Is that correct, Mrs. Weitzel?
That is correct.
So-
They do not have Title I, and they do not have Save the Children. And they expressed an interest, along with some other schools, and in looking at equity of services, Amber Creek, and then their students go to either Richwood Middle School and High School or to Summersville Middle School and Nicholas County High School.
So that was my question, although not all those students will go to Richwood Middle, it's okay to,
It is okay.
Okay.
They're still considered a feeder school, and that's
Okay.
the requirement.
thank you. Any questions or discussion on A? Okay, B, discussion with possible action on developing the softball team at the Richwood Middle School, job postings and salaries.
Mr. Collins is here to go over any of that with
It was pretty self-explanatory in the packet. Does anybody have any questions or concerns on that? Mr. Collins, is there anything you'd like to tell us?
I think everything,
Everything's there?
yeah.
Okay. All right,
Excuse me.
yes.
The only question is salary. Because when we post the positions, when we need to post, and this is a newly created position, so that's,
Doesn't Summersville Middle School have a girl softball?
they do.
I think you'd go along those guidelines, wouldn't you?
We can, if that's the board's desire, then that's perfectly fine with me. We just wanted to make sure that
Those are based on numbers?
they are.
Are the numbers going to be, they should be comparable for a softball team?
Well, it's based on, my understanding, it's based on the previous year's WBSSAC.
So there's not a previous year?
Right.
Right.
So I would say we just have to do what we do for Summersville. Do you all agree with that? Since we have nothing else to go by. And then it gets adjusted at the end, it gets adjusted the next year, correct? She's smiling. No?
I really think at some point we really need a board work session to discuss how these salaries are developed, because so the head softball at Summersville Middle School is $3,000. The assistant is $1,711.05.
Making a killing.
Well, I can see in football where you may have lesser number of kids between the two schools because of the population base. But really baseball, softball, and basketball, usually you have a limited number that you actually field, and those should be comparable between the two schools.
And none of those folks make a killing.
Oh, absolutely. Our coaches give way more time and.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a board member. No, I mean, from experience, I know I coached a few years at Richwood Junior High back then, and you would spend more on kids' food when you went somewhere. There was always kids that didn't have money, and you don't let, there's none of us that would sit there and let those kids not participate in a meal. You always bought their meals.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to blow anybody up, but coaches don't do it for the money.
No, they do not.
Well, I'm just trying to think too, I don't see where you would have disparity.
Yeah, I agree.
In the softball part of it.
Or baseball or basketball,
Yeah.
not too much.
Yeah.
So for now, the salary, we'll put that in a motion. Okay. Action item C, discussion with possible action on inclusion of Summersville Elementary School and Glade Creek Elementary School into the newly proposed pre-K-8 school at Glade Creek. Let's back up for a minute. Let's take these action items one at a time. And let's go back to A. And was there any other discussion about the MOU for communities and schools? So do we have a motion to accept that?
And that's a $285,000 grant,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
It's hard to turn down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to-
free money.
To benefit extra counseling, supervision, and stuff for Panther Creek, Ridgewood Middle, Ridgewood High School.
Correct.
So would somebody like to make a motion to accept the MOU for communities and schools?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Moose, seconded by?
Second.
Mr. Berry. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Action item B was discussion with possible action on developing the softball team. Whoever needs to make that motion needs to make it with the salary in mind. So, would anybody like to make a motion on that?
I make a motion with the same salary that Somersville School pays.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moose. Any discussion?
No, it's just, did we want to hold a session before we decide that salary, or?
No, I think later on in the school year, when we're looking at some other personnel actions, would be an appropriate time.
So
Okay.
you're looking more for next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Moose. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now, the big one, discussion with possible action on inclusion of Somersville Elementary School and Glade Creek Elementary School and Somersville Middle School into the newly proposed pre-K through 8 school at Glade Creek.
I had a phone call today from Micah Whitlow, who works for the State Board of Education. I got one from Andy Neptune from the SBA and Mark Miller from the SBA about this particular item. And in order for us to propose a CFP amendment change and all this, we need to have this worded precisely. So I prepared this motion for our board members to consider. I sent it on to Michael Whitlow at the State Department and made sure that this is what the state needs as far as information in order to put it on the agenda and approve it. And that's what this is. And it's basically to combine those 3 schools into one. And it talks about also changing the CEFP, but it also mentions that Nichols County High School and the Career Center would remain in their current configuration and their current location. So that's all one big motion. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood why it's so wordy. It's because that's the way they needed it, to cover all the bases. But we didn't want to have something that was didn't include everything, and have to go back in December and do it. It just wastes a month. So they helped me prepare this motion.
So is there any discussion?
Well, I think we need to do anything we can to speed it up or keep it moving, because that's been a problem in the past. It's been expensive for the county.
Yeah.
Say the least.
Not necessarily the board holding it up, other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just hard to work with that, too many people.
Right.
And I did tell them today that if anything along the lines comes down the road that we need to do, call me and tell me, and we'll get it, whatever it is, we'll get it done.
We have to call a special meeting.
And I told them that.
You ready to entertain a motion?
Ready for somebody to make that motion if they,
I'd like the honor of making that motion. I've had this proposal since 2018, and I'm finally seeing it come to fruition. Do you want me to read the motion?
yes, sir.
Okay. I make the motion that we begin the process of preparing impact statements and holding school closure hearings for Glade Creek Elementary School, Somersville Middle School, and Somersville Elementary School respectively. These schools are now planned to be consolidated into the newly proposed PK through 8 elementary middle school at the Glade Creek site, originally designed for a middle school, high school, and technical center construction. According to the proposed plan, Nicholas County High School and Nicholas County Career and Technical Center will remain in their current configurations and locations. With this motion, I also would like to include changing the current CEFP, Consolidated Educational Facilities Plan, and submitting it to the West Virginia State Board of Education and School Building Authority for approval, which would allow these changes and closures to occur for consolidation purposes.
Okay, so you heard the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Green. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And so moving right along to consent items, finance.
Favorite topic.
Okay, I don't have very much today. First item is payment of current invoices, and most of those were sent to you in your packet, but then I handed out 3 pages at the beginning of the meeting. Do you guys have any questions about any of those things?
So I noticed on the first card, there were 2 voided checks. Just
Yeah, those are FICA and federal withholding. Those are some of Peggy's payroll items that accidentally got posted when Sherry did her accounts payable batch. And usually Sherry doesn't do Peggy's, something happened,
so
sometimes a little glitch.
it's just a correction.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. It was nothing, no mistake, except for they just weren't ready to be posted yet.
Okay. One thing I'd like to point out, sometimes the public, they look at some of this stuff where you're paying folks as mileage, and they don't realize, they think it's all mileage, and sometimes it's for rooms and
Right.
meals and board, so I just wanted to point that out to the public.
Right, that's true. Sometimes.
It's not all mileage.
Right. Sometimes people have a P card and they can get their room if they're traveling on a P card, but sometimes they don't, or they just are not able to for whatever reason. So, that's an expense that can be reimbursed to them that could be pretty expensive.
There was one other thing I wanted to know about, and Miss Sarah, the awning for the RV, was that, was it a new awning, or had to be repaired?
It had to be repaired. Mrs.
Okay.
Knox had a little excitement with it, but that'll be reimbursed to Save the Children.
That's fine, I just wondered. Thank you.
The invoice to Adam Kaminsky for the field treatment, I know what kind of business, I know him actually. Do we have a contract, I can't remember, does he do that quarterly, Alan, or annually? That's for the Richwood Field, I assume?
It is for Richwood Field. It was starting to look kind of rough. It was getting a lot of wear on it, and we had him come back in and do a little extra work on it. But it was starting to look pretty rough, and we really tried to do our best to keep that field looking nice.
No, it looks good. I just know the local golf course had a contract with him, but it was like a 3 or 4 year contract, and then they wanted out of it, and there became some problems. We actually have a contract with him, or you just call him when you need him?
We call, he pretty much, he knows when to come back. We don't really have a written contract with him.
Okay, well, that's good, actually.
But it's kind of an understood, he knows when to come back. He'll call and we'll set up a date and he comes in, but He treats it a few times.
Yeah, he does a good job. He did a great job for the golf
Yeah,
course. They just
he's
couldn't
very
afford it.
knowledgeable and does a good job with it. And he's doing a really good job of training our guy over there on taking some extra steps too, so we can be a little more proactive, kind of without him.
Okay, next item, supplements and transfers, and this is really only the carryover from the balances that we had at the end of the last fiscal year. We have to manually key those budgets in for the next year, so that is what that big report is. It's not any new grant awards or anything like that, that's just reestablishing the projects from last year and this year. That's what that big report was.
Questions? Okay,
And then this county student transfer request, do you have information about that? Just a male student in 12th grade from Webster County to Ridgewood High School. I assume they have that information in their packet.
okay. Anything else? Do we have a motion to accept consent items, finance 1 and 2, and the out-of-state, or out-of-county, excuse me, student transfer request?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Berry makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moose. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, number 10, personnel.
It is getting a few lessons each time. We just have a few additions. Employed in the position of long-term sub 4th grade at Zela, William Womack. Employed in the position of custodian 3 at Ridgewood High School, Alan Nicholas. Employment in the position of ECAT at Zela Elementary School, Tina Brown. And then a few additional substitute teachers at Alexander Hall, John Malcolm, Heather Neal, and Jessica Burns.
And Ms. Weitzel, Mr. Prime mentioned when he was walking up, we were talking about volunteers. We are looking at changing the way we do volunteers and only going a couple times a year instead of doing them every board meeting. Aren't we talking about doing it next year, maybe?
We're looking at a couple different changes. One of the changes is the investigator is going to set up a portal where the parents can enter their information in and pay through them instead of paying at the school sending a check to the board sending a check to the investigator. It's just a lot of manpower to get to the same outcome. So we're working through them doing that. We were looking at an outside agency or a different provider to do that, and so we wanted to contact him first and say, you know, are you willing to look at doing this? And they very much wanted to keep the business and do that.
I was speaking about background checks.
Yes.
Process, Kelly, if somebody, because I know some people's names that's not on here yet, that hasn't caught up yet. Is it, they go to the school and then the principal recommends them? Is that our current process?
At the school, the parent coordinator and the school nurses collaborate together to do a training.
Okay.
Then that information is sent to us, and then we send it to the investigator. And then the investigator, when they get through them, will send them back. We're implementing a little bit of a change because from now on, we're requesting that a minimum of 5 people be at a participating training, because in some cases, we were getting 1 person. And that's a lot of manpower to train just 1 person.
But if somebody wanted to volunteer, what would be their very first step?
At the school principal, the school
School principal.
secretary.
Or the
The
parent
parent
coordinator?
coordinator, yes, yes. And we received several after the agenda went out because, you know, we're at the whim when he returns them to us. So we have quite a few for the next board agenda that came in this afternoon. There's probably 30.
Yeah, and there's still several, but Chris is still hanging out there.
That might have, there were, I mean, I just finished some.
Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the personnel agenda as presented?
Make a motion.
Mr. Green makes a motion. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Berry. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Reports. SESC, Mr. Ferguson.
There's nothing to update. They actually meet Wednesday, and Mr. Beam, I'll be in Morgantown. Mr. Beam's going to give the report next time. We actually meet this Wednesday, but there's nothing to report this time.
Thank you, sir. Right Horizons, Mr. Green.
Right now, I've got a meeting on Thursday.
Okay. Items for future agendas.
I'd like to bring back up that, the Mason Stone that we actually voted on last, a couple of weeks ago.
The Cornerstone,
Yes.
and you'd like to bring that back up and put it on the agenda for,
Yes, for discussion.
Discussion.
discussion only, no, discussion and / action, right?
Well, yes, yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I was contacted by Mr. Tucker, Craig Tucker. We are not allowed to give away the Falta shelter to the Children's Home Society, because they are not a government agency. So we have to revisit that as well, so, because we voted to give that to them. Now, what we can do is to vote to give it to the Nicholas County Building Authority. And they can turn around and give it to the West Virginia Children's Home Society. But if we're going to do it, we have to follow the paper trail. So I've already reached out to the Building Authority, and they have no problem with us going through them to give that to the Children's Society. So that needs to be on the agenda.
Did you talk to him about a reverter deed, or? Before we were gonna give it to Children's Society, and if they didn't have it, it would come back to the board.
Well, and I'm assuming that if we, no, you can't have a reverter. If you donate it to them, and then they donate it. So we'll just have to make that decision. So if we give it away, we give it away. But we'll have to revisit the, so.
But if anything, I mean, the building commission could put something in their language if they wanted to buy it.
Right.
But we'd be a third party.
Right. Okay. Anything else, future agendas?
What about the walking track,
What about the walking track?
that property up there? Want to put that back on there, or?
Because Kristen pointed out something to me. You want to speak on that?
I think that the agreement that you had, that was signed last time, said that you would have a decision made by November the 1st about whether or not you were going to give that away.
Well, obviously, that's not going to happen. But we can put it on the next agenda for discussion and possible action.
Will that be the same, I mean, as far as like with the government, who you're giving it to? Will it
City
fall?
would be a government.
Well, it has to be, it says nonprofit, right?
5093C.
Yeah, 5013C, 'cause so,
Since FEMA has a,
It could
it's
be a
FEMA
fountain.
money, right? It's FEMA money that built that, is that correct?
yes.
Doesn't FEMA have like a 5-year look-back rule on loyalty and stuff?
It was a 3, I think.
3 years, 3 to 5 years?
I guess what was said.
I think you just have to be careful. I mean, I don't know what was spent on, what wasn't, that was for my time. but-
It's been a pretty good chunk of
There's a
change.
lot of
on it.
FEMA money.
Well,
$430,000.
it's a lot
And it
of
didn't-
FEMA, well, that's my point, there's a lot of FEMA money.
Yeah, it,
How much?
$430,000.
Wow.
the problem is they only got one bidder. And,
I went over and looked at it. It's a question, again, I think, of whether the board feels they have a use for it or not. If you do want to keep it, my suggestion would be, but just a suggestion would be to put these wooden posts in the ground, which you've seen, like a cable running through it, just to protect the track and let people park home, use it how they want. But, that would, to me, would be simpler than rocks and everything else as far as weed eating. Al and I had that conversation a little bit. But again, if the board doesn't feel that they need a property, would use the property, I have no problem giving it to somebody to keep it up. But if you did keep it, I'd probably invest a little bit more money to protect that.
well, let's be careful not to discuss it now because it's not on the agenda. So let's put it on the agenda for next time. And any other items for future agendas? Okay, future meeting dates. I can't believe this, it's 15. Future meeting dates, Monday, November 6th, right here at the board office. And then there's a special LSIC meeting Tuesday, November 14th at Richwood Middle School. And that would be for Richwood Middle, Richwood High, Cherry River, and Golly River?
No, Ridgewood Middle, Panther Creek, Cherry River, and Ridgewood High School.
Okay, not Golly River.
Sorry,
Okay.
I should put that on.
That's fine. And that would be at Craigsville, at those lovely pods. And then C is a regular meeting Monday, November 20th. That is the week of Thanksgiving. Y'all want to keep that meeting, or you want to move it? You have not noticed that yet, have you?
I think I have, but I can go back and redo it. I think I noticed several of them. I'll read that.
Is there a lot of central office staff that take that week off?
First time I've been with them, so I don't know.
It is the first day of Buck season. I mean, the first.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you kind of poll the central office and see, because if you want them here, I mean, it doesn't matter to me, I'll be here, whichever.
Yeah, I'll check with them and see.
I can't be here the next week.
I'm sure I know why. I won't be that week. I won't be the 20th. But Kelly could run the meeting.
No, I can't can't be here the next week. So if we did one, we'd have to have it. Well, we'll just stick with that, unless somebody comes up with a Friday's not good either. All right, that brings us number 14, and we have the discipline of an employee, so we're going to have an executive session. So I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Mr. Berry makes a motion, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Green. All in favor? Aye. At 6:47. Do we have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Mr. Berry makes a motion, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Green. All in favor? Aye. At 7 o'clock. Do we have a motion on the discipline of this employee?
I'll make the motion that we follow the remedy proposed to suspend Sherry McMillian 5 days without pay.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Berry. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Bruce makes a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Green. All in favor? Aye. At 7:02.